Hello everybody, in today's video we're going to be going over a multi-day widespread severe weather event which is going to be moving throughout parts of the Central Plains and including the Southern Plains back through into parts of the Tennessee Valley, the Ohio Valley, and into parts of the Midwest and Great Lakes. We're going to be going over where you could be experiencing the worst severe weather as well as timing out the severe weather event. This is going to be happening over the next 4 or 5 days all the way through Monday of next week, so it's definitely going to be one of those longer term severe weather events that last at least a couple days in advance. So we're going to be tracking this out for you guys and giving you a detailed idea of what you should be expecting from this event. Here's what the current National Weather Service page looks like, and it is actually quite active for today. We have some winter storm warnings up for parts of the higher elevations all across California. We have winter weather advisories also in effect for those higher elevations in northern and eastern California, as well as for parts of northwestern Nevada. We also have some winter weather advisories and winter storm warnings up from pretty much a corridor from Wyoming all the way up through Minnesota and Wisconsin there, where we actually have some severe weather going on to areas further south and east of there, and we're going to be showing you what the current radar looks like in just a little bit. We have wind advisories in effect for the central part of the country, just kind of scattered around there, and because of the high winds and the warm temperatures, we have some red flag warnings for fire weather danger in effect for parts of the central and southern plains, as well as even a few high wind warnings in parts of southeastern Colorado. We have some special weather statements in effect for the areas surrounding West Virginia and that general area there through the central Appalachians, and that's a special weather statement, and I read their discussion. It's because of fire weather danger. We have warm temperatures and, of course, slightly gusty winds, drier conditions as well, and the risk isn't too high, but it is elevated for today. Yesterday, your high temperature for the entire continental United States was in Rio Grande Village. In Texas, they got to 87 degrees Fahrenheit, and the low temperature was tied between 4 areas in northern Maine. Escort Station, Maine, they got to -5 degrees. So did Westfield, Maine, Sardis, Maine, and also Knowles Corner, Maine. All of those areas got to -5 degrees Fahrenheit yesterday. That was the low temperature for the entire continental United States. The highest precipitation or rainfall report was 4 miles north of Brookings, Oregon. They got 1.47 inches of rain, and the highest snowfall report was 1 mile west of Donner Peak, California. They got 10 inches of snowfall yesterday. So here's what the current radar looks like. It is actually quite active, especially over the northern plains. Zooming in here, we have some thunderstorms actually moving all the way north of Minneapolis, all the way into northern and central Wisconsin, and they actually have we'll show you this in just a little bit, they actually have a 5% chance of tornadoes back throughout this area for today. So that threat has mainly passed, but you still do have a threat for some fairly gusty thunderstorms, and then you go maybe just 5 to 10 miles northwestward, and you have snow over these areas in central Minnesota, back through much of South Dakota into northern Nebraska there. The snow is going pretty much according to plan, and it's fairly close to what we were expecting. Again, we also do have some of those mixing issues and ice issues closer to Lake Superior. You have a fairly cold lake surface, and the actual surface temperatures of the lake are quite cold and below 32 degrees, but you go into the upper parts of the atmosphere, and the air temperature is actually above freezing, so that does cause some ice issues over most of those areas. And again, it's very impressive how we already have some severe thunderstorms rolling through into the upper Great Lakes, and we're only in early March by this point. So here's what the Storm Prediction Center has for the threat of severe weather today. We have a marginal risk anywhere in the darker green, which goes from Minnesota all the way down to Oklahoma. And then we have 2 different areas of slight risk. One for central Iowa, southeastern Minnesota, and western Wisconsin, as well as another one for southeastern Kansas and a little bit of Missouri and Oklahoma as well. Those 2 areas are where you have to watch out for some more severe weather. We have a 5% chance of tornadoes, actually, for parts of anywhere in this brown area. So for parts of central Iowa and a little little bit of southeastern Minnesota as well. We have that 5% risk. It's actually a fairly high risk, at least for this time of year. And when they do put up that 5% risk, that means that they're at least looking at some potential for a tornado, a scattered tornado or two. Here's your chances of hail. We have anywhere in the greens 5% chance, and then a 15% chance in the yellow area, and we have two of those areas, one for Kansas and Missouri, another one for the areas in Iowa, Minnesota, and Wisconsin as well. Here's your wind threat, and we have a general 5% chance, which goes all the way down to Oklahoma, but then we have a more isolated 15% chance for central Iowa, southeastern Minnesota, and also into western Wisconsin. So here's your day 2 outlook, which is for tomorrow, and we're looking at a marginal risk for parts of Missouri, Kansas, Oklahoma, back through Texas, and a little bit of Arkansas as well, and that's in that dark green. We have a general thunderstorm risk where you could see a few thunderstorms or maybe just some lightning roll through. That goes all the way up through the Ohio Valley and then back down as far south as northern Texas there. So that's your general risk for tomorrow. If we go to the specific details here, we have a 5% chance of hail anywhere within this stripe right here, and a 5% chance of wind wind damage over these areas in Oklahoma, Arkansas, and Missouri. Here's your day 3 outlook, and it gets more isolated, more centered over the Oklahoma, Texas area. So anywhere from Kansas and Missouri through Oklahoma and then back down into Texas is where we have that marginal risk. And then we have a slight risk of severe weather going through Oklahoma City, west of there, and then all the way north into the northeastern part of the Texas, or the southeastern part of the Texas Panhandle there. Now, here's your individual probabilities. We have a 15% chance of any general severe weather within that yellow shade, so we definitely do have a shot at least of seeing some severe weather in those areas. And here's your day 4 outlook, and when they put something again from the day 4 through 8 outlook, that's when you want to pay attention, because it could be fairly big, and also they are paying attention to it. That means that there is a fairly good likelihood that you'll see severe weather, at least 15% chance, or equivalent to a slight risk, anywhere from southern Kansas down through central Oklahoma and then into north central Texas there. That's where we have that 15% chance, or equivalent to a slight risk, and that would be for Saturday. Here's for Sunday, and we have that risk pretty much the same exact shape, but just shifted a little bit further east. So you go into eastern Oklahoma, eastern Texas, back through much of Arkansas, northern Louisiana, southern Missouri there. That's where for Sunday you have that risk of severe weather. The flooding concerns mainly in northern Wisconsin for today, and that's mainly because of snowpack that could be melting because of the severe weather and the rain and the warm temperatures, or the warmer than normal temperatures. So that's what's really leading to your excessive rainfall / flooding risk. It's not mainly due to the heavy rain. It's mostly due to whatever snow may melt that could cause some ponding on the roadways. Here's your chances for Thursday, which would be tomorrow, and we're looking at a 5 to 10% chance in this green area from southern Missouri to southwestern Ohio due to that severe weather. And then if we look at your day 3 outlook, we even have a slight risk of 10 to 20% chance, which goes all the way westward into Oklahoma and Kansas, and goes as far east as parts of Kentucky and Illinois. That's really not a good thing, because these areas still are dealing with flooding, especially if you live right along the Mississippi or Ohio rivers. That's where you are still dealing with potentially some flooding concerns, even from that event just actually a couple weeks ago by this point. So unfortunately, there are still some flooding concerns over those areas, and unfortunately, you are going to be dealing with a bit more rainfall added onto that. So here's what your precipitation is going to look like on the radar, and this is your forecasted radar from the high-resolution NAM 3cam model. This would be for later tonight, so this would be right around 12 a.m. Tomorrow morning. We're looking at some fairly strong thunderstorms moving throughout parts of Missouri, Kansas, and then even back down through Oklahoma, kind of in this shape right here. And I think the severe weather is really being overlooked if you live back through here. This is actually going to be a fairly big event for those areas that I just circled right here, because you're going to get a line of fairly gusty storms kind of going in a bow echo shape right like this, and and that's usually where you can get some fairly gusty winds on the front side of these systems. Then you get the heavy rain, potentially a little bit of hail as well, and then the system really moves out, and then you get some fairly clear, drier weather behind the system. That's generally how these types of events go. So by Thursday morning, we're dealing with a line of storms going straight through the heart of Missouri, back through southeastern Kansas, and even dipping its toes into Oklahoma there. And then it really dies out into the morning hours of Thursday. It expends all its energy. We really don't have any more energy left with that event, so it really dies out. Then as we go through the day on Thursday, we're dealing with just scattered thunderstorms, but then through the evening hours on Thursday, so this would be by right around 3, 4, 5, 6 o'clock Central Time, on Thursday, we're dealing with more severe weather starting to line up for parts of Indiana and Illinois by this point. So now that's the area that we want to focus on, and those thunderstorms actually get fairly intense, sort of like what we were looking at over parts of Missouri and in Kansas over there. So that's what is pretty much transpiring over parts of Ohio and Indiana. We're dealing with a fairly similar event, probably not as severe just because the ingredients aren't as prime, but you are still dealing with maybe even an upgraded, you might even be upgraded to a marginal risk or even a slight risk if what the NAM 3CAM model it actually starts to pan out, and if we start to see that on radar. So they might even upgrade this area right here to a marginal risk. We're gonna have to see where the exact placement of that actually is. This is just one model, of course, but then that really dies out as we get through Thursday night into Friday morning. Here's your next event. So this would be by Friday in the morning hours, and then you start to see some scattered heavier downpours back through southern Kansas, but at this point it's just mainly very isolated storms, maybe the width of half a county, so really not too big of thunderstorms. Then as we go through the evening hours on Friday is when they start to get a little bit bigger and impact a larger area. So this would be we have to downgrade to the lower resolution NAM model just because the higher resolution model does not go as far enough out as we need it to. We have some scattered thunderstorms rolling through parts of northern Texas into Oklahoma, Kansas, and Missouri as well. And then we're going to see these storms continue to head further to the north and to the east. We're dealing with that snow back through Colorado. They could be dealing with fairly intense and heavy snowfall that might fall over those areas. So we do want to watch out for those areas. If you do live within that area in Colorado, Nebraska, or northern and western Nebraska, or eastern Wyoming, if you're in the path of that storm and you want a more detailed forecast, leave a comment down below and I'll be more than happy to give you a pretty much hour by hour forecast on what you guys should be expecting. So we're not going to cover it too much in today's video, but if you do live within that area, if you do want a forecast on that, just leave a comment down below and I'll definitely respond to you guys quite quickly and give you a general forecast. This would be by Saturday in the early afternoon hours, late morning time frame. Still dealing with some general snow back through the Colorado Rockies, and we're dealing with rain and general thunderstorm activity back through Kansas, Missouri, Nebraska, and that area. Then as that low pressure starts to travel further to the north, by this point it's in Colorado, we're seeing these winds coming out of the south right like this. So we have warm, moist air and humid air coming out of the Gulf of Mexico, and that's what's going to fuel this line of storms. So you can already see it set up right like this. We have very light to moderate rainfall by this point, but then it's going to actually start to strengthen up a little bit. So we're dealing with scattered and mainly a line of storms moving throughout parts of central Kansas, Oklahoma, and then back through into Texas by this point. This would be by Saturday night. As we go through Sunday morning, we're dealing with that line of storms heading further and further to the east. We're still dealing with those storms heading further east as we get through Sunday morning. Here's your low pressure, very strong system, by the way, and it's just going to pretty much sit here and slightly move further to the north and to the east. As that happens, you're dealing with a big line of storms that's arching over parts of Nebraska, back down through into Missouri, Arkansas, and then into Louisiana and Texas. I think as you get actually further north is where it's going to be a little bit more intense. It's actually kind of the opposite of what typically happens. This would be by Sunday in the early afternoon hours, late morning. and then shifting this further to the east, shifting the frame further to the east. This would be by Sunday night into Monday morning. You can even see the start of our next system, which we'll discuss in a couple upcoming videos, but maybe even some sort of snow threat for parts of the mid-Atlantic. Again, we're going to discuss that probably into the weekend time frame, just because there is still a lot of uncertainty with that event. We're dealing with rain back through, and even some thunderstorm activity back through the Tennessee and Ohio River valleys, and we're dealing with general storminess back through the southeast in general. We're dealing with that snow again further to the north. We're gonna have to watch that system because there is still a lot of questions in terms of how deep is that cold air, whether that cold air is really gonna make it that far to the south. So again, we're gonna continue to monitor that. But the general thing that I want you guys to take away from this is that we're dealing with general storminess back through the areas around the Carolinas, the Tennessee Valley, and that area is where we're going to be dealing with some rainfall and thunderstorm activity. Here are your high temperatures for Thursday, so tomorrow. We're dealing with high temperatures in the 70s and 80s in parts of the southeast and the south central states. We have 60s getting up through Missouri and Kansas, so that's the general area that we're going to see the thunderstorms, and that even stretches into the Ohio Valley, where they could be dealing with some thunderstorms, and that area is all going to be pretty much either in the upper 50s at least, or at a maximum maybe even into the 70s for some of those areas. Here would be by Friday, and you can see it gets much warmer as you get further to the south, so we're dealing with mid 70s, even some 80s, 90s even popping up over parts of southern Texas there for Friday. Here's by Saturday. Pretty much the same story, and then here to be by Sunday. Monday, still dealing with 60s, 70s, 80s for a lot of these areas in the southern and southeastern United States. So really no lack of warm air. We really won't have to deal with that. The real thing that we're going to be lacking is going to be the dew points and the moisture with this event. So we have 60s, and that is a fairly good amount. We don't need too much over 60-degree dew points to get any severe weather, but the problem is that we're not going to always see the 60+ degree dew points, especially as you get into the Tennessee Valley and the southeast for that system on Sunday and Monday. I don't think the severe weather will be as potent in those areas. We still have 60+ degree dew points back through the south central states. They stick around through Saturday into Sundays when they start to die down a little bit as that frontal system moves through, and then by Monday, Tuesday, those dew points are going to be probably into the 40s and 50s for a lot of those areas in the southeast and the Tennessee Valley. So not a lot of fuel for those systems, for those storm systems to really work with in order to produce any severe weather. So that is going to wrap it up for today's video. Please consider liking the video, subscribing, and turning on notifications, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Goodbye.